Welcome everyone to the Make With Me Google Hangout that we have as part of our Make Cycle Weeks in the CLMOOC of 2016. And we're really happy to have everyone here in the Hangout, and also anybody who's watching live or participating in the chat room or watching it later on YouTube. Hi everyone. We're really happy that you're here. My name is Kevin Hodgson. I am part of the Western Massachusetts Writing Project, and we've been kind of helping move CLMOOC into this summer 2016, and we are actually in our last Make Cycle, although I suspect there might be some pop-up Make Cycles after this one ends this week. This week we have Scott and Allie who are kind of facilitating and leading us through different activities. And I'm just going to pass the screen, I guess, over to Allie. Maybe we should go through and introduce who we are a little bit first. And I should say that I teach 6th grade out in Western Massachusetts in Southampton. And again, I'm part of the Western Mass Writing Project. So Allie, why don't you introduce yourself, and then I'll help introduce Stephanie too, who's having some audio problems too.
Sure. So my name's Allie Pasquire, and Stephanie was asking me why I'm wearing long sleeves. I live in Northwest Washington, where summer is, so-so. And I'm an early childhood educator. My background is in teaching preschool for about 12 years in a whole bunch of different settings, and right now I mostly train teachers and do professional development for early childhood educators. And I'm really excited to be here this week.
Great. Let's just move down to Karen Labonte.
Hi, I'm Karen Labonte. I am in New York State recovering from the heat dome that we've had for the past period of time, but it's been raining now and today is beautiful. I am unaffiliated right now, having just finished my doctorate in English education, and so my biggest affiliation, I guess, is with the virtual CLMOOC community.
All right, great. Raymond?
Hi, I'm Ray Maxwell. I'm a reference and instructional librarian at American University here in Washington. More reference, less instruction, but I'm trying to alter that mix. And I'm glad that everybody can hear me this week.
Yeah, we're glad we can hear you too. We never know with Hangouts how the audio and visual is going to go. How about Scott?
Hey everybody, I am Scott Glass. I am in northern Illinois, a little place called Wildwood right up close to the Wisconsin border. I am, in the next couple weeks, I'll be starting my 19th year teaching high school English and humanities, mainly 11th and 12th graders. It's maybe my 3rd or 4th year participating in CLMOOC, and it has just become my go-to thing for the summer. Keep creating. It's just been great.
Great. And of course, having a guitar in the background is.
And the guitar in the background. That's for you, Kevin.
Yeah. How about Sherry? Hi, Sherry.
Oh, hello. This is Sherry Edwards. I've been teaching for 31 years. I just retired this year. I've taught 1st and 5th through 8th grade, and the last 10 years it's been middle school language arts. And this will be I started CLMOOC in 2013, so great. It's a fun place to be.
Okay. How about
great people?
Yeah, it's been great having you and everyone. Actually, it's been really a lot of fun. Karen Fassenbauer, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi everybody. I'm Karen Fassenbauer, and looking forward to this Make With Me.
Yeah. And I want to introduce Stephanie, too, who's having some audio problems. And, of course, we do want to say how brilliant she is and forward-thinking and awesome. She's a PhD student, language and literacy at Georgia State, with a focus on digital literacies and tech in the ELA classroom, which is right up all of our alleys, I think. So she's going to have to do sign language tonight, too, and possibly smoke signals for us to be able to hear. There you go. And we're happy that that everyone's here, and that we're going to be talking probably about a lot of different things that are going on this week, but also some ideas Scott and Allie are floating around and kind of hoping to engage us in. So why don't I kick it back over to Allie, and you can take it away, Allie.
Sure. So yeah, I'll chat a little bit, and then maybe Scott, you can pop in afterwards because I saw your make this morning, which was really interesting. Maybe we could chat about that too. But I made a couple posts about the theory of loose parts, and I'm going to put a link in the chat. Just kind of the original paper that was written on this idea, and I'll just put in here. So in the early 70s, there was a guy named Seymour Papert. Or I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Seymour Papert who just passed away. I'm thinking of the wrong person. I'm thinking of Simon Nicholson. So R.I.P. Seymour Papert too. But so Simon Nicholson created this theory of loose parts that kind of helped flop the idea that that creativity is only for artists and creative people who do creative jobs. So creativity is really for everybody. And one of the big things he said is that when we have things in our environment that can be manipulated and changed, we have more opportunities to create and think deeply. So I brought a little basket of loose parts to play with kind of during this Make With Me. So if you have some objects around you, even if it's just things on your desk, I like to curate loose parts. So everything I brought today, they're all circles, and they're all little like just bits and bobs that I find around or just found objects. So it's not your toilet paper roll or your egg carton like your old school preschool crafts, but do something a little bit different that you can get hands on and make with. And I think that helps connecting with materials and doing stuff with our hands. It reminds us that things are changeable, and there's no wrong way to do something, and the process is really at the core of all of it. So I don't know. I know Stephanie maybe had some things on her table. I don't know if anyone else brought some things to play with, but there's Stephanie. She's got some circles. Beautiful. Yes. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of be playing around with my stuff. It's not something you have to share out, but I thought it'd be good to do something with our hands while we talked. So I hope you enjoy that aspect of it. Oh, and I see that Anna's here now too.
Hi, Anna.
So yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to kind of take the ball now and add on to that. Maybe Anna wants to say hi.
Sure, hi. Sorry I was late. I was on the road and there was construction. And but I knew this would continue without me, so that's good. Yeah, I don't know if people have talked about what they're thinking of making or what stuff they have around them. Have we talked about that, Allie? Or did you just start?
Not really. I just started, so I don't know if anyone wants to jump in and talk about what they have in front of them or talk about their experience with kind of open-ended making with objects.
Nice. Well, I have some objects. They're actually upstairs. I have to go get them. I ran in and ran right down here to work on. But just thinking about what it is that I've been learning as I've been making. So one of the things I've been tinkering with, which is different than free open making, but it's still kind of applicable, I think. So I just got this. This was found in a neighbor's basement, and it's one of the old Underwood typewriters. And I geek out about communicative technologies and compositional technologies. So, so I've been refurbishing this. So I've been cleaning it and then trying to retool it. At this point, I thought before that the ribbon was advancing like it's supposed to, but it's not. And so I've got the next thing I have to do. I don't know if you can even see it. It's got this beautiful inner workings. You can see all the inner workings, and like this little dial is what advances manually advances the ribbon. And so what was I've been thinking about my teaching, particularly of communication and technology, and then my own like making and tinkering is that the number of problems that I've come up against that I had to clarify what exactly clarify the boundaries of that problem, and then how I might address that, and then go find resources to find it. Like, I've watched a million YouTube videos. I've researched and found copies of the original manuals for the typewriter, which has been so awesome, to read those and look at those. But thinking about, as we're making, the number of problems that don't have, that are at first ill-defined, and then we don't just solve, right? But that process is so gratifying and so energizing. I've been so excited as I've been tinkering with this, and you know, and it's on my mind. If I'm not doing anything else, right, or if something's not present on my mind, in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, where else can I look for how to, you know, because I've learned all these different terms, like this is the PAL, right? It's PAWL, and I've got to learn out the PAL gear, and I didn't know what a PAL gear was, and all of this stuff, and so all this, I guess, serendipitous learning that I've been doing, and through problem solving, and it wasn't like somebody crafted this nice problem-solving learning session for me, but it really spurred on my learning, and I want to think about how I could make sure that my teaching gives space for that, both in terms of time and resources, but then also just in terms of how you think about what outcomes you want and all of that. So I was thinking, so Allie, as you were talking about this, like, what comes out of being open? You know, what comes out of having open problems too?
Yeah, I think I really want to clap the whole time you're talking. I think that there's something about it's not just about like the things that you're moving around with your hands or the typewriter. It's about being faced with a problem, a pretty unique problem that you can't just turn to someone and say, oh, how do I get the audio onto my Hangout? Like, that's a problem that we can all make our suggestions, and it's very solution-based. But when we have objects or we're working on process, it teaches us how to persevere a little bit more and see a problem and not just turn it off and pick something else. So that's really interesting, and that is a really incredibly cool typewriter. What a neat project.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, you're talking about like going to YouTube, right? And so we talk about like affinity spaces where people are sharing out their expertise about things. I'm sure you've had all that situation where something didn't work in the house, and like, how am I going to fix that? And then, you know, somebody somewhere has posted a video of it, right? So we talk about, maybe we'll surface some more connected learning stuff as we go through the Hangout, but that's one of them, right, is that kind of peer sharing and kind of pursuing your interests. So I think it's kind of neat. Plus typewriters are cool.
I would add to those skills too, just the idea of agency and the idea of not always consuming, right? Like, we're treated as consumers in so many facets of our lives, and that's one thing that I try to stress with my students all the time, and I really try to consider in my own life, is finding those moments where I'm not a consumer. I'm not just consuming things that have already been prepackaged for me, but that I am, Allie, as you said, getting my hands-on material. So right now I have my state rep stopped by for a little chat today and gave me this flyer. Guy's name is Sam Yingling, so I figured I'd grab that and some paper and X-Acto knife, which might be my favorite tool ever, and that's what I've been kind of doing as you were talking. So, but making stuff, and you know, it's what, like I said, I talk to my students about a lot. You know, and this is one thing that I do quite a bit in my classroom, is have these times where it's just throw the magazines out on the floor, get out the markers, the scissors, the X-Acto knives, the glue sticks, and give them some challenge for a half hour. You only get to use this many images, maybe this many words that you have to find in a magazine, and basically create a story or something, just to get that kind of deep attention to detail and that sense of agency going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In my classroom, we call those the Apollo challenges. So it's like when the Apollo 13 mission got that Houston, right, you have a problem, and they only had a certain amount of material that they could use to save their lives. And so I'll give them like just a sheet of paper and say, I need to see the Eiffel Tower or the Statue of Liberty, and then they have to figure out how to build it, just with one sheet of paper and maybe an inch of tape, and that's it. So it's amazing what they can do. Some kids just go. Sometimes it's the brightest kids too that just go, what?
Yeah.
I mean, the ones that are bright, A students go, what?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I think that's something that happens a lot, Sherry. I think that people, a lot of even 3-year-olds do that. They'll approach a table that's just covered with like circles and things and paper, and they'll say, "What do we do?" Or their parent will turn to me and say, "What are they supposed to do here?" And I say, "Whatever they want to do." This is a project that I've been bringing out into my community, these loose parts, and bringing them to community events and kind of setting up a table and having a way for people to engage with things that, I mean, these concepts can really blow people's minds sometimes, and it's so simple. And but I like to think that people go home and just start playing with bottle caps, or maybe your kids go home and grab a piece of paper and make their own challenges.
yeah, they start making up their own for me, and we challenge each other. So it's very fun.
Do you think that's more likely to happen in lower grades than the upper grades, Ellie?
I'm not sure. I think that there's a certain sense of wonder and curiosity that I think we naturally have as children. And we kind of, unfortunately, I think that this group is maybe unique because we're all spending our time doing projects like this, like CLMOOC, but I think there are, it starts to kind of go away the more times you're told this is exactly how to do it, and if you don't do it like this, it's not, then it's wrong. So it's the more opportunities that both children and adults can have to do things that don't have an incorrect ending, and because we use the same tools a lot, or we spend our time kind of every day doing the same things over and over again, we kind of get into that static routine. And Scott kind of, I love X-Acto knives, and you're hacking your local government official's flyer. I've got a bunch of those on my table. It's election day, so maybe I'll spend my evening trying to make my own definition of local politics. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if anyone else kind of wants to chime in and say what they're feeling about that kind of stuff. Sorry, Stephanie, we can't hear you. Yes, your chat. Oh, yeah. Older students being more rubric-driven and having a hard time functioning.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thanks for pointing that out, Stephanie. That's what we had in mind, actually. Kevin, when you asked that question, the Twitter chat last Thursday, that came up. There were some people talking about that. What happens in the upper grades as, kids have been in school for longer and longer, and they've gotten used to the game. They've figured out how to play it. They have come to really digest what they have been told is, what they're supposed to do, how a classroom is supposed to function, and what they should be really paying attention to. And I find that it can be difficult sometimes to try to get them out of some of those ruts, some of that routine. Like I said, I teach mainly juniors and seniors, so I'm seeing kids right at the end of their K-12 experience, and some of them really struggle big time when I give them some open-ended challenges. And of course, for many of them, one of the first questions is, well, how are we going to be graded on this? Well, you're not. I mean, does that mean you're not going to do it if I just say just do something? But it's, and as frustrated as I get, I have to look back at us as teachers, as the system that, it has trained them. They didn't decide on their own that they wanted to be graded. That's just something that they have come to, unfortunately, embrace. Or I don't know if embrace is the right word, but they certainly have bought into it. And it's something that kind of needs to be unlearned. But Allie, the other thing I was going to say, as you were talking, is that we talk a lot of times about, we'll frame this as an issue like, oh man, here's what's happening with students. But when you bring up adults, like whenever I'm talking about media stuff and digital literacy kinds of issues, and people will always frame that as a discussion about kids, and it's like, well, yeah, okay, sure, kids have a lot that they need to learn about how to use devices and technology in creative, thoughtful ways, but adults just as badly need this, you know? So there's a couple of thoughts there.
It's interesting to hear you talk about this fixation on grading with juniors and seniors. I, for a long time, have been teaching in a master's program for pre-service teachers, and I started asking people to raise their hands if they had ever been in school during a time where there was not standardized testing. And over time, more and more people, fewer and fewer people would raise their hands. And so eventually there would be nobody in the class who had remembered being in school without standardized testing kind of running everything. And those were the students who had the biggest difficulty connecting with, as I think Anna was talking about, the need to figure something out, whether it's like, oh, I have all these paper clips, what should I do with them? Or I don't know how to write this, or I don't know what to think. I mean, and so I make those kinds of connections too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You made me think something that I did when I was a kid. My dad insisted on it, and I did it for about 6 years. But I participated in Odyssey of the Mind. I don't know if you. And I mean, it was exactly how I live every day in my life as a teacher. And my dad is he's a farmer, but he's also an education enthusiast. He was on the Board of Ed in my hometown in Connecticut for a long time, and he was really enthusiastic about those hands-on problem-solving learning experiences. I'll have to call him after I'm done here. That just reminded me of that. I wonder, Ray, if you had anything you've thought of that you might want to add.
Yes, in fact, this is slightly off the beaten path, but we're in the at the beginning of August postcard poetry month. I'm looking through a stack of postcards, thinking to get my materials that I'm making. A stack that I've been keeping all year, and I've come across 3 that have pretty interesting quotes. Here's one. It's backwards. Freedom of expression is everything.
It's straightforward to us.
Yeah.
So we can see it.
Okay.
Backward to you, but we can see it.
Here's another one. Nobody can teach me who I am.
That's a good one.
And here's the third one in this group. And so the quotes are interesting in and of themselves, but during the postcard poetry week month, you write a poem. You're supposed to write a poem in first draft on the back of a postcard and send it to a number of people on the list. Because I've got the list from CLMOOC as well, and I've already started receiving postcards from folks in CLMOOC. I'm doing a 2-track theme where I'm sending my postcards out to people on the poetry list, and I'm recycling them with people on the CLMOOC list. This is pretty interesting. It's a picture of the river down the street where I take my morning walks. And this is a photograph made into a postcard. If you can see it, the river was so still that the reflection in the water is almost reversible with the actual item, which is kind of philosophical. Which one is real? The one in the sky or the one in the water? And then we did a vacation in Portugal last year, so I have a bunch of Portuguese sings. There's one. There's one from him. My favorite poet. My favorite spot in downtown Lisbon. Actually, the one from Pessoa already has a poem written on the back of it. So
Oh, nice.
I'm going to have to write my poem in the margins, on the sides, and at the top.
Very cool.
And so again, this is not exactly pertinent to what we're discussing, but this is what's in front of me. One more thing. This is what everybody is scratching their heads about in the library world these days. The new ACRL framework for information literacy for higher education. And so these are the frames, and I sort of put them in a geometric pattern to see if I can make them make some sense in terms of their interaction. I can send this to anybody who wants to have a copy of it.
Yeah, I saw that as a Silent Sunday post that you said you've been sitting there staring at it all day on Sunday. You're like, I've been sitting in silence. Yeah. Yeah, just thinking about the many roles of making, and writing is making and making in order to understand things, in order to make sense of yourself in the world. We foreground connecting, obviously, and connected learning MOOC, but it's the there's all kinds of things that are happening when we foreground writing and making. I'm also working on postcards, Ray.
I think that quote.
My mother has one of those typewriters, by the way.
Oh, awesome!
Wow. I was going to say that the third quote that you pulled up, Raymond, about text never finish or something like that. I think that dovetails very nicely with all the stuff we've been doing this summer, right? About talking about text in the bigger meaning, right? Like media and composition, and not just particular kind of writing on the page necessarily. Well, that's part of it. So I like that quote there, and that tied in nicely with that information creation as a process that was on your geometric chart there. I think all those things resonate with me anyway.
It's interesting to think about us as texts individually and then as a group.
Yep, we're always in process.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the ways that we've been represented through the CLMOOC. So we have that the nodes. Oh gosh, the tags explorer, which is one way of seeing what's happening it's on Twitter. It's not on across all the different spaces that we're communicating. And so what is it? It's interesting when that. I was thinking about what is it that communicates to us about ourselves when that's our media about ourselves, right? When that is the text that's made of us versus the living text, and how powerful a particular representation of us it is. Like it becomes kind of a stand-in and almost. And then what are the other ways that we could represent ourselves? That's a deep one. Us together as a text, and if that's a living text, or if that's a representation that's only partial and then stands for the whole somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes it tricky with places like CLMOOC. I'm thinking of a conversation that I've been having with Karen Belinda on email. We've been back and forth a lot. About if you're not in one of those spaces, if you're not on Twitter, you're not on Facebook, or you're not on Google+, then what does that do to your experience in an open network system like this where we're not purposely not in one place? And that concept of are any of us ever seen the whole picture? And I say no, and that's okay, but it also can bring up a discomfort that you feel like you're missing a conversation or missing a thread, and maybe you see glimpses of it, and then you wonder about it, I guess. And so I think those kind of legitimate, not necessarily criticism, but questioning about the structure, the open structure of a place like CLMOOC is, something worth talking about all the time.
Although it seems like that's also kind of a microcosm of what we all experience, not just with CLMOOC, but I mean, you talk about how much of our lives at this point, many of us spend online, and coming to terms with the fact that there's always going to be more out there than you can ever access or deal with, the whole notion of it's just, the information never stops, right? I mean, it's that fire hose that's been turned on, and when there's no real kind of dipping in, or you can try to dip in, but it's just ongoing, and how easy it is to end up feeling just overwhelmed, So, yeah, I mean, I definitely, over the last few years that I've participated in CLMOOC, have felt that anxiety about, like, oh my God, what am I missing now? What am I missing now? And, scrolling back through tweets and scrolling back through Google Plus posts if I've been gone for a day or two, or other summers where we've been gone for like a week or two. It's like, how am I ever going to catch up? But then giving myself the permission to, like, well, I just don't catch up. I mean, it's fine. It is what it is, and I will see the things that really stimulate some thinking and that, I want to connect with and use and curate. I mean, I think that skill of curating is so crucial for all of us. Again, not just kids, but adults. And Kevin, like what you were saying about this discomfort with CLMOOC just seems to move so fast. Well, I mean, I feel like in some ways that's what we're all, by and large, trying to deal with anyway. How do we make sense of what's going on around us?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's making me think a lot of times we make these lists of skills for the 21st century, but you're talking about dispositions and attitudes that have to shift in terms of all that. And I saw on the side somebody was saying about, I think it was Terry's idea, right, Jomo, like joy of missing out, or love of Lomo, love of missing out.
Yeah, it looks like Wendy.
Like a whole new way of seeing it. And that was really good for me this year to think about, like, take joy in having to make the inferences and not having everything being explained to you or seeing it all, but seeing the spaces in between and what can be generated. What new ideas do you get from just seeing a part of a conversation, or or somebody's make out of context, and then trying to find the context yourself, make sense of it yourself. There can be some really great creativity in that moment.
And don't you think you have to have a real sense of yourself, a sense of a self as an entity of a being, not necessarily a finite kind of thing, but you have to have some sense of that you yourself can move in and out of spaces, and when you move into it, you make the space different, and when you leave it, but you're still yourself. And it feels to me like somehow we have to teach kids about that too. Like, I know I always have to be learning about that. Maybe this is the first online experience I've had in the CLMOOC where I didn't feel like I had to be there every second and catching up. I really felt like I can only do what I can do, and now I got to go do some stuff, and it'll still be there, and that's great. I'm not responsible for the stream. I'm not responsible for the web. I'm just part of it, and I'm going to bring what I can bring. And then I keep thinking to myself, how am I going to teach kids or other colleagues about that approach to all of that, whatever that is, the internet, the information, the images, whatever,
And I hope that we teach the sense of helping to make the world better. And connecting so that we understand other people's points of view, and not just getting the information that just fits our schema. So that's another.
Well, it strikes me, Sherry, that there's a difference between making and thinking and then the emphasis on connecting that I think people were talking about so deeply in the first week, that what's important is the connection and the making, but also the connection. And that has made it so, that in itself has been an invitation for me, and I think for other people, to just come and enjoy together, you know, with whatever you bring.
We've tried to make connection, you know, as we talk to different facilitators in each make cycle, to make that front and center this year as much as possible. I think that makes a big difference.
I think so too.
Wendy, can you say hi since you popped in? And I don't know what time it is where you are.
Yeah, no, I'd love to pop in. I obviously got the time zones a bit wrong because it's just the start of my work day here, so it's 9 o'clock in the morning.
You should say where you are too, Wendy.
Yeah, so it's great to see everybody. It's a real, it does make a big difference to connection. So I was just thinking when Anna was talking about ourselves as text, and this morning Karen Belinda put in ourselves as music, and that adds another perspective that we can put ourselves out there as music. And then just as the other Karen was talking now about how you are online, I think a really strong sense of your own self-identity does help you create your online identity. And, you know, maybe that is difficult for some younger people. And it's also difficult for some adults. They just don't get that they can be strong offline, but they can bring that strength online. So however you want to be online, it certainly helps if you've got a strong sense of identity. And as you said, Sherry, a positive, you know, sense of identity to realise that even though you don't know where you are online, like how many people are interacting with you or reading your blog posts or whatever, if you do have that sort of positive sense and project that way, I think it's certainly something that I aim for. So I've really enjoyed CLMOOC, so continue the conversation. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. It's nice to meet you. I'm glad you're chiming in. I mean, people are saying all sorts of things that are really I'm connecting with and trying to write down my own personal meaning of it. But that idea of are we what other people, are we what we just project, you know? Do we have to just be what we share? Do we have to just be, you know, like you see, you look on social media and all the babies are very happy, but you know that most of the time those babies are not happy. You know, like I always think about that. I'm not a mother. I have an adorable dog, but I'm not a mother, and I always think that. I'm like, it's so much more complex than that. You know, we don't want to show the whole spectrum. And I think one great thing about CLMOOC is that, like you were saying, Karen, you were saying, you know, you can step in when you need to, you can step out when you need to, and you don't need to feel that pressure to always be creating and showing that creation. You know, you don't always need to be, and that can be part of your identity as well. So that's a little bit. And then everything that's happening here on the side too. Stephanie, I'm sorry we can't hear you. I wish we could, because I feel like you have a lot that you want to say.
Do you think that teachers maybe have a harder time stepping out of the stream of the web? Do you think we just are so used to orchestrating and creating the environments for other people that we don't let ourselves just be in an environment?
We love control, Karen.
I guess so, right?
There's this tiny piece of all of us that likes to be able to orchestrate all of that, and it's really important because children, or of any age, I always think of young children, but the whole spectrum right through college, you're going to learn best if you just have the time and the space to kind of mull it over, but we don't take the time to mull it over, ever, really. Or it seems that no one really seems to be doing that. That's what I see.
Yeah, I think, too, that this is one of the reasons why we need to make sure we always validate people are just watching and not necessarily participating. Because sometimes it takes a while for people to find that comfort level, and sometimes we notice, because you know this is our 4th year, I think, that it takes 2 or 3 years sometimes for people to make something, right? And that's okay. But I think it's hard from our end of things to make sure that people understand that's okay too. That you know that's a valid participation, certainly acceptable. Try to make sure that message is consistent and Joe Dillon's really good about articulating that better than I am in a lot of ways. But I think it's part of one of the threads of a place like CLMOOC is that people can just watch, and that's okay too. And
for a lot of introverts, watching is participation, right?
Yeah.
It's very active participation.
Yeah. And it might tie into some of those tags Explorer. Raymond's been doing a lot with it, and so I used this idea. We made that the Daily Connect today, but we see a lot of people on the outside of the kind of center, which might be. I mean, I don't know all the mechanics of that Tag Explorer site necessarily, but it might be people that have a loose connection to people who are in it, and so they're kind of observing perhaps every now and then and just poking around, and that's cool too.
Or they're just posting less frequently, right? And using the CLMOOC tag, yeah. So it's interesting to how do we see our learning or see our connections when they have to be all mediated? I think in face-to-face spaces, silence is interpreted very differently, for better or worse. But yeah, that's interesting to think about.
Well, because it runs counter the whole accountability, right? That is drummed into our head of, I do a check mark when you talk, whatever it happens to be.
And you
right?
get your 10 points if you say something.
Yeah, and it doesn't
use a quote. two bonus points if you refer to something that somebody else said.
Yeah. Well, Raymond got 30 points tonight because he had 3 big quotes. And they were really big ones, too.
Good job, Ray. You get the A in the class. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so it's both like you were saying, Kevin, it's both communicating that lurking in all its forms is participation, but that we actually also, we being all of us, right, because we are CLMOOC, not some particular subset of us, but that we really mean it. And I don't think people think we really mean it at the beginning. And same with, it's okay not to post, and it's okay not to accept my invitation, and it's okay not to do this make cycle and do the next one, or do the first make cycle in week 7, which doesn't exist. But you're always just right on time, and we actually mean that, right? You're never late.
One of the difficulties is that this word connected, because if you say connected, then you're expecting people to respond or connect in some way. So I think there's a tension there between lurkers and connected. So if you're saying, let's celebrate in a connected way, then lurkers are sort of going, well, that's not me. I'm not there. I'm not in the dance party or whatever. So I think there's a good tension there, but I think we just need to keep on iterating it, that lurking is okay. And occasionally you can loudly lurk, where I see people say, I'm not participating, but
here's my thought.
Yeah. So I think loudly lurking is something that I've seen and try to encourage and go, good on you. Keep lurking and just occasionally put in a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's like Kevin's dance party. There is no way that I could. There is just no way. I'm sorry, but Kevin said, okay, so do something else, and so I made my little jiffy thing with the eye blinky thing.
Don't tell anybody.
Oh, sorry, but I posted it on the.
Yeah.
But that was like,
you just danced. You're live on YouTube. You just danced. I'm sorry.
You did. Yeah, Kevin, I thought you said you posted something about having a dance party.
Isn't it wonderful, though, that you could say, no, I don't want to do that, and people say, well, okay, do this instead, and that's still dancing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I have software to take little clips of YouTube videos.
Yeah, Wendy's doing the editing. I'm just doing the cheerleading.
Cool.
Yeah. But Wendy, I wanted all of us. We should do it right now.
Oh, gosh.
All you have to do is this. Or make a jump and say, come on, everyone. Come on, we can do it.
Okay. Come on, everybody.
Sherry brought an egg shaker.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Hey, that's probably enough because we can make that.
Yay, we did it. We did it.
Wendy, let's remember that, okay?
Can we share our makes that we've been doing?
Please do. I was going to say, it'd be nice if you feel like sharing. You don't have to, but please do if you want to.
So what I have, because I'm in my office, I have paper clips, and I have this big ball of yarn, and because I don't know why I have a ball of yarn, because believe me, I know. But so I put it together, and I made a thing for postcards.
Ooh,
I'm
nice.
going to put my CLMOOC postcards on it.
Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sitting here at my desk, which is filled with stuff, and one of the things is this little bowl from Central America. And so I emptied it out, and it was filled with the plugins to all kinds of Mac devices. And so it became a little CLMOOC person.
All right.
That's nice. Yeah, loose parts can be anything. I like that.
Parts.
I love it. It doesn't have to be, a lot of people. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole. If you try and look for the loose parts community, it's quite big.
Yes.
I brought some stuff. I was stacking for a while and balancing. I brought all round objects. I kind of curated my loose parts, but I ended up taking these little drawer pulls and whatever this is, I got at the hardware store, at our reused hardware store in town. It's kind of like a thrift store for reused materials, and I made these little guys. And I don't know, I'll probably keep working on them afterwards, but I tend to not use glue. I tend to take everything apart at the end, but I made these little guys, and they're kind of soaring around my, I also started writing down a lot because you guys are so insightful, so I kind of pushed them aside for a few minutes too, so that's all right. Who else?
I've cut out Sam so far. What I'm trying to figure out now is, do I want to do something with the negative space, or I also used him then as a template, and I started cutting out, his shape from a magazine, and so I don't know yet. I started with this one to start writing on it. If I want to put that back, I don't know. I like to just play around with these materials and not necessarily have a plan. And but templates and negative space, those are two of my favorite things. Go-to ways to get my mind going. What can I make out of that? So we'll see where this goes. Maybe nowhere.
That is really helpful. I'm going to have to, let somebody tweet that out. Templates and negative space. I want to start playing with that.
Okay.
Really helpful.
I'm writing it down right now.
Okay, good. I too started to just play around. I have no end goal. So I got this from Eat Your Veggies, or Susan. This is a postcard part of Karen's postcard project. And she sent out this this interactive one where you're supposed to put 10 objects on it and then send it to somebody, they make something, and they send it, send it back. So I've been gluing these on here just haphazardly out of all my loose ends that are sitting over on this. I'm really lucky to have this work table. So I've just been kind of attaching, kind of matching the shapes that were on here as the example. Again, I don't have an end in mind yet, and I still don't, but I started to do that. But her postcard, the idea of an interactive postcard, got me thinking. So I'm about to send out this next round. Here, let me cover up the Scott's address here. But so I'm going to send out this next round of postcards because I've been really inspired by a number of us, Ray, Scott, Kevin, talking about poetry. And Terry, we're going to do some representations of poetry in the celebration week, and how powerful that is, and it's come across for so many people. So I'm going to send out. I did these directions, which I did on a sticker, and then this kind of started as a loose parts project. So I found these are those stickable envelopes that you can use on a class chart. And what I did is I put 2 slips of paper in it. So on top is the person's address, and on the bottom is a slip of paper with my address. And on the back of it, I'm taking parts of like language arts articles and English journal articles that otherwise would be recycled right now. And I'm putting on the back, and I'm inviting people. So the directions say, pull your address out to find mine. On the other side, create a poem out of the text, blackout style or otherwise. Add a fresh stamp and send it back. So then, then I'm going to try to do something with all of them when I get them back, and kind of reassemble them into a large poem out of the combination. So so inspired by this idea of an interactive postcard, I'm doing another different kind of a set of interactive postcards. So I too, Ray, am working on postcards.
Great. I think we should check in with Wendy before we go, for sure. Wendy, what's happening?
Oh, the frame.
Sorry, I'm just doing a very super quick make because I obviously didn't join in right at the start. But this is a postcard that I got from each of Edgies, and it says you have to cut out the middle and take a picture of a very important person. And so I'm thinking this is another postcard that someone on this call will probably recognise. And there's another postcard here. And so I'm just wondering how I'm going to recycle these postcards and to reuse them. And so I'm just wondering, I really like that idea of putting things on top of the postcards. And yeah, so there's lots of ideas there. Anyway, I've got to skip. Thank you very much, and I'll watch the rest of the recording after this. Bye.
Hi, Wendy. I love that frame. I've had students do stuff with frames before, where they cut out a frame and have something on it, and it's always kind of cool. So if they do video stuff, and you post that online, and I don't know, something about that static frame, but then something actually moving behind it. Interesting stuff that they've come up with. I'm glad she did that because that reminded me that I want to do that again.
Yeah.
Almost like even asking students, like, what do you want to frame? What is something that is frame worthy in the classroom, in your life, in some certain environment, and seeing what they bring back. I've had some interesting experience with that.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I was also thinking of it. That brings up this. So work on framing, about moving the frame, foregrounds, particular people, and backgrounds things, highlights things, and so how do we frame concepts and ideas, and it changes how we react to them, and so that's an interesting project in and of itself. I'll post. There's a post that a colleague of mine did a while ago on my site, so I'm going to post that around framing.
Yeah,
I want to think about these frames and negative space, and that's really got me thinking. Cool. So Stephanie, sorry, we were showing us what you were making. There we go. Oh, is that your last name? Yeah, so you're working on the letters. Very nice. Oh, cool. That looks great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm sorry we couldn't hear your voice tonight, Stephanie. I wish we could have. Oh, yeah.
All different ways to participate in CLMOOC.
Nice.
We're probably shooting towards the last part of the Hangout, I think. I don't know if we want to start moving towards wrapping things up, talk about what's going on this week a little bit, and we go from there.
Yeah, I was interested
Kevin,
in what we're doing this week, or as part of this make cycle, if anyone has projects that they've taken on. I really quickly, Sherry was talking about making that makes a difference, and Janice had posted earlier this week about her literati project, where she has been for the number of years now collecting litter off of the beach, and she first takes pictures in Instagram and really kind of juxtaposes things really well, and they're really beautiful pieces. And then those are art pieces themselves, and then she now makes things out of like these loose ends. And she just did a project with the writing project there and young people with the writing project. So for a curiosity, I've been wanting to talk to her forever. So I set up a curiosity conversation with her for this Friday. I'm going to make it, I've been wanting also for a long time to do a podcast, and I've been wanting also every year in CLMOOC to talk about how I can make my making, make a difference and not just make for mixing, which has its own value, but I want to start moving toward things that have an impact when I'm doing this kind of creative as well as critical. So anyway, I'm getting a lot done in this make cycle. So that's what I'm doing this week with the curiosity conversation.
Great. I guess I'm going to try to wrap it up. Is that okay, people? Because we're about an hour long.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say that it's been great having everyone on the Hangout. Great discussion. And I want to mention that this week's theme is all about celebrating connections. And Scott and Allie, with some help from Anna, are really kind of pushing us in that direction. We're going to have a Twitter chat on Thursday night, same time as this Hangout here, and we'll kind of get information out there about that as it gets closer. And we are still trying to do a flash mob dance party, so there's information in our different spaces if you're interested in participating in that as well. And Wendy is kind of pulling it all together as editor extraordinaire. We'll see. We don't know how it's going to turn out. We'll see how it turns out when it's over. I'm sure she'll do a great job. And this is our last make cycle officially, anyway, for this summer. But we'll be kind of sharing out things as we go along about ways people can stay connected with CLMOOC and each other all through the course of the year too. So yeah, I guess that's probably it.
So I'd love to hear too, I know I took up our time to say what we're working on in this make cycle. I'd love to hear what other people are working on in terms of celebrating, how they're making to celebrate connections, and so like people can tweet it out or post it on G+ before it's done, right? I know a text is never done, but I'd love to hear people's ideas as they're emerging too. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah. And we want to shout out to the folks that were in the chat room tonight too, kind of participating as we were talking here. Does anybody want to just share out one last thing before we kind of head out for the night?
It's great seeing everybody.
Yeah. And it's good to hear you, Scott.
Yes, it's nice to be heard.
Yes, everyone deserves to be heard. Yeah, great.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. See you in the different spaces.
Okay, see you across the spaces.
Okay,
Good night.
Good night.